Hey Wizards, so normally I have some pretty exciting plate carriers or gear or night vision to show you, but today I have more of a cautionary tale to share with you that's kind of been sneak peeking a little bit, where I got scammed out of 2 suppressors. There's some things that happened that I want you to be aware of that I didn't even really know was possible with some shady FFLs, and also it leaves you with no real recourse where, Silencer Shop or the ATF, they can't even really help you either. So today we'll answer the question, can your FFL steal your suppressor or your firearm? This is my whole story. Now, before we get into it too far, I want to share with you what I think the exact scam is so that you guys can keep an eye out for it as we go through the story also. So normally you purchase your firearm and it gets sent to your FFL, and your FFL contacts you to say your firearm's in, and you go in and fill out your 4473 and you pick it up. It's super easy, we've all done this, right? But there exists this kind of interesting loophole where the FFL can receive your firearm, but never ever bother to contact you. The FFL is technically in possession of the firearm while it's being transferred, so nothing illegal happens there, and it's probably super bad for business, but the process itself is never actually broken if they never even contact you to tell you that they got it. And learning that, I'm hoping you feel the same way I did, where you're a little bit surprised and a little bit pissed off. The FFL can actually put your firearm out for sale to a customer who has no idea the gun is already paid for, and every bit of that sale is then pure profit. And in this situation, you paid for a firearm, but the FFL sold it or gave it to someone else, and you get nothing. And at this point, we all want to stop and go, wait, no, you can't do that. And I'm with you until it happened to me, and you have to start looking at the process and you break it all down and you go, oh, that really is possible. And they can probably get away with it a certain number of times before the ATF even cares. For suppressors, it's similar that the manufacturer can form 3 the cans to the FFL and then they form 3 it to you. Like, that's the right way to do it. But similarly, during the transfer process, the FFL now owns the suppressor. So they could just not contact you and instead sell it to someone else, pocket the money, and form 3 it to some other random or known or unknown third party. Or hell, we heard this crazy one at SHOT Show where the FFL, like there was some cat cans, they're super rare, super expensive, and the FFL just decided to keep them, but they didn't do anything illegal because they just never bothered to process the customer's paperwork. So those cans are still on the FFL's books, and that customer has no way of getting them back. Now, we also need to address this elephant in the room. I know people want me to call out the FFL, and it really puts me in a bind. On one hand, I know the FFL that I'm 99% sure is ripping people off, and I feel like I do have an obligation to tell others and warn others so they're not ripped off in the same thing that got me. On the other hand, naming the FFL opens me up to some ramifications legally, as the FFL technically hasn't been found guilty in a court of law. In the end, my wife and I had a long conversation about what we should do and looking at those 2 different sides of things, and we ended up deciding not to share the name of the FFL. And really, what we thought behind this and why is because this is more an educational and a cautionary tale, and less not witch hunting. We don't want to do that here. I know that's going to bum a lot of people, but just I hope you understand why I took the position that I did. Now, also, as a little bit of background, some people are going to say, like, well, why'd you use that FFL? I've used the same FFL for like 10 years. This FFL knows what I do, knows we do the YouTube stuff, and has even Cerakoted and sponsored a bunch of the guns we've done on the channel too. I say that because ultimately it wouldn't be very difficult to figure out who they are either. Now we'll get started in just a second. I just have one more oddball thing I want to mention. Maybe you guys can help me understand why he would do this. Whenever I would get tracking for a firearm, I would do like anybody else does. I would pay attention to when it arrives. I would see that it's been, delivered to the location. I would call him, and then he would say, "Nah, man, it hasn't been delivered yet." Even though the package on the tracking says delivered and says his name, he would just tell me, "No, FedEx is wrong." Then almost exactly a week later, he would call me and tell me that FedEx dropped off my package. It was very, very weird. Like, he wasn't aware that I had all the tracking information for the firearm. I don't don't get it. Whatever, it was really kind of odd, and you guys let me know down in the comments if you know why he was trying to do that, among all the other things I'm gonna bring up. Now, let's get to our actual story. This actually started in about August of 2025. I'm trying to do a 6mm arc build. That's where all this began with. I wanted to do an 18-inch barrel, but I wanted to do an over-the-barrel suppressor that Griffin has. And the over-the-barrel actually makes the same 16-inch length with the can, but you can do it with 18. So you can get a lot of the barrel velocity and all the advantages without the negatives of a longer can. So that was my thought process behind wanting that can. The claim to fame anyways, there's no zero shift, and you actually have a shorter suppressor, like a shorter overall length. I want to try it all anyway, so I get a hold of Griffin and we order one. And about this time, I start to really rack my brain on how we review suppressors. Like, do you guys want to see, night vision shooting, to see flash suppression? How would we record decibel ratings? All that stuff, just trying to work out how we review suppressors, because I actually do have a good bit of cans that we could start to compare and show off also. So I'll say the clock for our story starts like October 2025. We get notification from Griffin on the tracking that our can has arrived, I think right at the beginning of the month. And we hear nothing from the FFL, which kind of, as I told you at the beginning, is pretty weird, but par for the course at this point. As normal, about a week later, he gives me a call and he's like, hey, I got some stuff for you. But the NFA website is kind of being wonky. He's having some trouble with it, and to give him a couple weeks. Well, I don't know any better, so I'm like, okay, not a big deal. At the time, I didn't have the suppressor host anyway, so I'm not in any sort of rush. So then a week goes by, and then weeks and weeks. And then it's the end of October, and I haven't heard anything. So I decide one day, I'm like, hey, let me follow up on this, and I'll give the shop a call. Odd, when I call, nobody answered. So I'm like, you know what, I'm out and about anyway. Let me go stop by the shop, see if I can pop in and see what's going on with the can and everything else. Well, when I get there, there's this really large sign that says, by appointment only, and all of their store hours are now crossed out. So I'm standing there, I'm like, I just talked to the guy not too long ago. This is super obnoxious. When did this change? Whatever. The sign says to call him, so I give him a ring. This time, straight to voicemail, no ring, no nothing. So I'm standing outside, the phone's going straight to voicemail, like when you call the actual business. The doors are locked, I can't get in. I don't know, maybe the guy's on vacation or something. So I go back home and wait another week and hear nothing. About this time is when I begin to get annoyed. Now, this FFL has a landlord that has a motorsports company that's downstairs. So I just call them and I kind of explain the situation to them. Like, hey, he's got a product of mine. I'm trying to process it, but I haven't heard anything from him. I wasn't rude. I was super, super nice. I just wanted to make sure he wasn't like laid up in a hospital somewhere and I'm here knocking on the door and annoying him when the guy's actually hurt somewhere. At this point, I think it was like the first week in November. And so I'm talking to them on the phone and they're like, nah, he's upstairs. He's up in the shop right now. Really? Oh, that's fantastic news. And they're like, they're super, super nice. They're like, hey, can we give him a note for you? I'm like, yeah. Can you tell him to call me so we can get some information and we can talk? Lo and behold, he calls me immediately and lets me know he's at the shop. No communication, no nothing for over a month. But then suddenly he's right at the shop the moment I contact his landlord. Well, I'll tell you right now, I did not love that. Hilariously though, this is where it actually gets worse. By this time, I have the MASP executive for our suppressor host, so I asked to see the suppressors and take a look at them. The suppressors were all there. There's actually two of them. It just doesn't matter. It's just the basics of the story. So the suppressors were all there, and I took the Griffin muzzle device because with the over barrel one, there's actual special like shoulders you have to have on the barrel. You have to make sure it fits. So interestingly, I actually have the muzzle device for that suppressor. I just don't have the suppressor. So I take the muzzle device and I'm gonna go test it when I get home. It just, it fits just fine. But when I'm there, I ask him, I'm like, all right, well, while I'm here, what's the deal with the cans? And he just points over to the silencer shop kiosk, and it's just this big blank screen. And he's like, yeah, silencer shop kiosk, it's down right now. You can see it's just a blank screen. It's a known issue, but once it's back up and running, we'll get you all situated. Remember, at this point, we're at about 6 weeks of him having the cans and doing absolutely nothing. But I'm looking at the silencer shop kiosk. It is down. I mean, all of that seems pretty legit. So I leave. I mean, why would he lie to me about that, right? So I go back home and I wait a couple more weeks. I think it's a pretty good amount of time to let the kiosk come back up. So I shoot him a message. I'm like, hey, it's been a while. I mean, we're in middle of November at this point. Has the silencer shop kiosk come back up? And nothing, no reply, nothing at all. At this point, I'm continually getting more and more annoyed. So I reach out to Silencer Shop, and at this point, I'm probably a little bit jerky, and I send them a message on like their chat function because nobody ever bothers to answer the phone. And on the chat, like I said, I'm probably a jerk, and I'm like, hey, when is your kiosk gonna actually ever come back up? I've been waiting for like a month just to even process my can. And the dude responds to me like I'm a complete idiot because actually I was. He tells me that the kiosk is only for doing your profile. And when he looks at my profile, he sees that only my photo and some of my answers were out of date. And I can actually just use the app to update all that information, and I don't need the kiosk at all. So I hang up the call and I go on the app. This dude is absolutely correct. It just says I needed to update some things for my profile. I redo my photo, redo some answers. And it's very clear to me at this point that I didn't need the kiosk. It was also very clear to me that I never needed the kiosk. So now at this point, I'm realizing somebody lied to me. But why would they do that? I don't quite understand. So I reach back out to the Silencer Shop guys and I'm like, hey, my FFL told me that the kiosk was down and they couldn't process that. Why would they tell me that? That seems untrue. And the Silencer Shop guy was like, I don't know why your FFL would ever tell you that. That's completely incorrect information. But regardless, the kiosk is up. The system that they use to put the cans in the system is completely different than the kiosk. Nothing to do with that at all. Now, me being super happy at this point, I text my FFL and let him know I called Silencer Shop and that the kiosk was back up. Oh, and just super weird, he didn't reply at all. Now, at this point, I start talking to a bunch of other content creators, kind of saying like, hey, I'm having this weird situation. Have you guys ever dealt with this? And interestingly, a couple of them are also FFLs or SOTs. And when I explain the situation to them, they're like, no, your FFL can't just hold on to your can for as long as they feel like. There's a certain amount of time that they're supposed to process it in. And then one of the local FFLs, like I'm friends with here, I'm talking to him and sharing him the story. And he's like, wait, what FFL is it? And I give him the name. And he's like, no way, that guy stole a can from me like a year ago. And I'm like, wait, what? How is that possible? Then he goes into the detail and explains what happened, where he transferred a can to the FFL and that FFL kind of ghosted him, kind of ignored him, did some shady business, and then somehow sold that can out from underneath him. And hearing his story is how I even learned how the scam that we talked about in the beginning even works. So now I do what a retired first sergeant does well, and I dig into all this stuff. His better business history, it's an F. Great. I look through the Google reviews and holy hell, it's exactly what this FFL mentioned, and it goes on and on. Victim after victim. People buying items and then he ghosts them, and I have no idea what happens after that. So I hear this story and I look at the Google reviews and it all kind of matches up and I'm like, oh hell, this guy doesn't answer his phone, he doesn't answer his text messages, his building is now appointment only, and he's obviously lying to me. So I do what all those FFLs I've been talking to recommend. I contact the ATF. Now the ATF is pretty hated due to their ongoing feud with the Humane Society, but this is what they do, right? I mean, there's some obvious evidence and it all seems just so easy and well documented. So I call up the ATF and I tell them about what's going on, and surprise, surprise to me, the ATF is already aware of this FFL, and they asked me how much money I was out. We had some conversations about that, and they recommended I take them to small claims court, but that was really about it. She was super, super nice when I talked to her, but it was really kind of nuts that small claims court was my only course of action, and probably how so many shady FFLs get away with this for so long, because it just takes so much effort to get the wheel spinning to even fix it when this happens. So we end that call and I end up calling Griffin, and I let them know that I think the cans are stolen at this point. The FFL won't answer any calls, the doors are locked, and I have no real recourse. And they understood, they were awesome, and we started working out how exactly we move forward and what we do next. I did actually call the ATF one more time. I thought this was really interesting. I want to share this with you all. I was very curious if the FFL could still process, transactions and everything else and do transfers. So I asked her, I was like, hey, could I get this FFL to transfer the cans back to the manufacturers? And she was like, yeah, even though we're taking a look at him, he can still operate business like normal. So if you can get him to transfer those cans back, he can still do that. Now, small note here, she didn't sound very optimistic at all that was gonna happen though. Now, one other interesting thing, she did ask me if I made a police report. And I was like, no, I'm actually gonna make a police report after we get off the phone call here. Now, I thought this part was interesting to share with all of you because she actually said that I can't. Because the can was never actually in my possession, I never owned it, therefore I can't be the one to make the police report. It needed to be the manufacturer. Here, I want you all to be aware that as the purchaser of the suppressor and of the firearm, you have very little recourse if it were to be stolen from you from an FFL, and you really have to rely on the manufacturer to kind of give a damn and do all that legwork for you. I think this whole thing was just a huge eye-opening moment for me that you can't really do much if someone just decides to just own all of your stuff. That's crazy. But I give Griffin a call and I tell him all this and I let him know that they got to be the one making the police report and yada yada, and we're working through it. And they decide to get their compliance guys involved. They start working all this stuff on the back end. At this point, I've pretty much considered all of this a loss. I don't know what else we could possibly do, but I don't know. Maybe they could work some back end magic with the compliance guys. That was like the end of November. So a few more weeks go by. I'm not very optimistic about what's going to happen. Then though, on December 12th, an absolute miracle happens out of nowhere. The cans show up for transfer in the silencer shop system. I'm excited because now, after 2.5 months, these cans are finally in a system somewhere, and someone should be able to help rectify the situation, right? Overall, I am far more optimistic at this point. Foreshadowing though, I still don't have the cans as of the time I'm making this video in February, so who's the silly bitch? I also get a text from the FFL saying he's been out of country and he's made me a priority. I mean, the internet is a thing, but fine. After getting the cans on October 1st, I'm now a #1 priority on December 12th. Whatever, it doesn't matter at this point, let's just get those cans moving. Now, during this text interaction on the same day of the 12th, I asked him if this is the time that I need to pay my tax stamps. And he's like, yeah, you need to go ahead and go in silencer shop and pay your tax stamps now. So this part is important also because on the same day, the December 12th that the application came, I went ahead and paid my $400 to silencer shop. Like I said, there's 2 cans actually, and they had my money since December 12th. Now though, I'm on like cloud 9. Like, this is actually gonna happen. We're gonna fix everything. I'm all excited, but then really weird stuff happens again. He starts telling me, I don't know why, that he wants my eforms login and password so that he can finish the application. This is super odd though, because when you look at the actual application on the silencer shop website, we're at step like 3, which is internal review. Like they haven't actually reviewed the form at all yet. So we still have to do a bunch more steps. Like I have to sign it, we have to do all these other things, and then you get to the final step of certify. So I don't know what he's talking about. At this point, I would say I am very, very annoyed, but I'm also getting very curious as to what the scam is. I mean, he already has my cans, so I go ahead and bite. I tell him I'll get it to him, but I was really just stalling. The eforms website says explicitly not to do this. Just be aware, nobody needs your username and PIN. That's just for you. And it actually explicitly spells that out on the ATF eforms website, that if you give that information out, that they could actually terminate your entire eforms account. I don't know, maybe that's what he's trying to do. I don't know. Thankfully though, because I read, I was very much aware of this rule when he was asking me for this information. So I say, oh shucks, the website says I can't give that out. Can I come into the shop instead? Well, surprise, he's not available at the shop suddenly, but he can text me in the morning and we can sign everything then. Here I'm just super curious. What does he mean sign everything? We're not even to the point where Silencer Shop has approved the application yet. But I'm annoyed, really annoyed at this point, and I'm curious, so that means I'm suddenly super patient. But the whole thing was for nothing because the next morning, no calls, no texts, he's not at the shop, nothing at all. In the meantime though, I start branching out. So, we're in Silencer Shop. So I reach out to them and I ask them if there's anything I need to do. And they're like, no, they're communicating through chat again, right? Because they don't call anybody. We're talking through chat and they're like, no, you don't need to do anything. There's no action needs to be done on your part. Your whole application is just under internal review. So you can just sit tight and we'll get all done for you. Then we'll move you to the next step. I'm sitting there, I'm like, awesome. All right, thanks. We're going to get this situated. But again, a little bit of foreshadowing. They are completely useless. I then get a text just a bit before Christmas where my FFL talks about some random ice storm that I didn't even know what he was talking about. But he asked me when I have time to finish everything up. Then I show him the actual status and say, the application's still under review. Like, what are you talking about, man? He acted like super surprised when I showed him the actual status of the can. He was like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Let me call Silencer Shop on Monday. I have no idea if he actually did. I just don't get the scam here. Like, why did he want my eforms info so bad? Like, was it to do something nefarious? Like, did he just want to save me a trip to the shop? I don't know. Maybe there's something obvious that I'm missing that you guys are more familiar with. So let me know down in the comments. I am very, very curious about that because after this point, he never mentions it again. For the application though, I see no movement over Christmas and New Year's. I mean, it's the holiday. Most people are on vacation. It's to be expected. And I just kind of let the clock keep running along. Then about the second week of January, this is getting stupid. We have gone 3.5 months at this point. 3.5 months and we have not even started. Have not even started the process. So being super happy yet again, I hit up Silencer Shop, of course, via chat because nobody answers the phone yet again. And I'm like, hey, my application has been under review for like a month. Like, what's the holdup? And the guy tells me, he's like, yeah, the internal review process can take anywhere from 2 days to 2 months. And the more I think about it, I am 99% sure that I'm being punished because I'm doing a Griffin can. And I think they have some sort of weird beef. I don't even know, because Griffin uses Capital Armory. But talking to our friends in Discord, talking to everybody else, nobody else has multi-month waits. And neither did I with my other cans through Silencer Shop. So there's something weird going on here and I'm getting punished for it. But let's just assume everything's on the up and up and there's not some piss babies out there somewhere. It takes ATF like a week to approve your application. And you're telling me it takes them months to even look at it? It doesn't make any sense. At this point, I'm so pissed because we're like 3.5, almost 4 months into this whole thing. We haven't even started the process, but nobody had any sort of problem at all with taking my money. I love that part. A bunch of you may have seen at this point, I made a post, like an Instagram story post, about the situation of being told it could take anywhere from 2 days to 2 months. And a lot of people were very surprised by that because it seems like nonsense, right? Interestingly, kind of funny, Silencer Shop reached out to me via Instagram almost immediately to see if they could rectify the situation. I will also caveat that the Instagram guy is absolutely awesome. I think they should fire everybody else in customer service and just hire that guy, mostly because 1, he speaks in full sentences, and 2, isn't a total jerk. So the badass Instagram guy kind of fills me with optimism again. He tells me that like, hey, we're gonna get into the dealer network and we're gonna find out what's going on. We'll get customer service involved and we're gonna get everything moving for you. We're at least gonna find a way to help you. I told him I've pretty much lost hope at this point, but not gonna lie to you, he made me feel pretty optimistic we were gonna get things fixed. Now, yeah, another week goes by and I go to check our Silencer Shop status. I'm like, hey, maybe our hero, our Silencer Shop Instagram hero dude actually unjammed everything. No, the application that had been sitting at awaiting internal review for what, a month and some change now? Now the application, guess what? it just says complete. I click on it. What is this? None of this even makes any sense. I never signed anything. I never did anything. And I pretty much had to fight to talk to anybody. So how is the application now complete? So I send an email over to Silencer Shop and ask what happened. Did they get the cans back? I don't know what's going on. If so, and I don't have any cans, can I get a refund on my stamps? I feel like I was pretty nice given the situation. A lot nicer than I should have been. Probably a lot nicer than my teammates would have been. But the whole situation is getting kind of dumb at this point. I share some of it on socials, but it's the weekend at this time, so I wait for Monday for an answer as to what is even going on. So Monday rolls around and it's time to go head out to SHOT Show and get on the airplane. But hey, let's take a minute to go check on the status of our can. I mean, it's only been 3.5 months of record-breaking dumb at this point. I log into Silencer Shop and see this. The dealer is now listed as unknown. I can select a different FFL, but my previous one is no longer listed. I check my email, and the only response I had to my question was, "You'll have a refund for your tax stamp in 5 to 7 days." What about the cans? Are they just gone? So I do what any normal person would do, and I ask them for more information, so I have a way to go forward and send them another email. Now, I'm fully aware that the customer service guys are useless at this point, but you know who isn't? The Instagram guy. So I send him a message and he replies quickly yet again. He's always awesome. And he's like, "Oh man, I can't believe this is still going on." He's going to get a hold of the customer service people again and the dealer network and see what he can tell me about next steps. He never actually gets back to me. Then later on the day, we get this gem. You should contact the ATF. I don't know. I just figured that Silencer Shop would notify me or contact me in some way, like a message or an email or a call, if the ATF suddenly needed to be involved. But no, that was all on me, apparently. I think I'm the most confused by it all, and the entire Silencer Shop experience was completely useless. And I would say, if I had to quantify it, how would you rank it? What rank would you call god-awful? Now, though, you're probably like, all right, you got one more loose end. You got to call the ATF. So I give the ATF a call. This is probably the best part of the story. They're like, why would Silencer Shop tell you to call us? They're just pressing the easy button and pushing you our way. There's nothing we can do to help you. We recommend small claims court. They took down all the information, but they're like, we don't really have any recourse for you. We have no idea why they would send you our way. Thanks, guys. Thanks for wasting my time. And guys, that's where the story ends. This magnificent story of stupidity. I have no idea where the cans are. I have no recourse at all. And if this would have been you as the customer, you would have paid your money for your cans and you would have lost your money and you would be battling and just hoping and praying the manufacturer cares as much as Griffin does to even bother to fix the situation, because nobody else in the entire process cares at all. Now, I know a ton of you are gonna say yeah, I could go battle that FFL and I could probably go fight to get that can, but God, just having already spent 3.5 months just trying to get this going, the idea of having to find him and work with him and doing all that, I'm not gonna lie to you, it makes me wanna punch my own teeth in. Now, the scary part is, as I've been sharing this story with a couple people behind the scenes, I met some guys at SHOT Show, I shared it with them, and some other influencers and some other content creators. And what's interesting is there was a bunch of other really weird stories that were going on also. Your favorite libertarian, he had one. He showed me this whole text chain where he had an FFL that damaged his muzzle device, that caused damage to his can. And they're like, hey, we're gonna send it off to Huxworks and get it fixed for you. And then they just never did. They just kept his can. I think they still have it to this day. Huxworks was like, no, we've never seen your can. I think he's getting it fixed, but holy moly. Just really wanted to share with you that this stuff is happening. And as my story got a little bit long, but I think you saw that it just got more and more ridiculous and more complacency and stupidity as we went on, that just made the whole situation even worse. Now, though, I want to hear all of you guys' thoughts. I want to hear if you think there was something nefarious going on, or if we can just attribute everything and all the people we met throughout the course of the process just to Occam's razor. Occam's razor is assuming that stupidity is mostly to blame. Or do the Google reviews and the fact that the ATF was already looking into this FFL influence your position as to maybe if something weird was going on? I want to hear all about it. Let me know. Just blow up those comments. I want to hear all about it. You know, kind of wrapping it all up though, I was really just blown away that your FFL could take in your suppressor or your firearm and do a series of goofy things and make it all seem super confusing and basically steal it from you. And then you're out all the money you paid and out the product that you bought. And the super crazy part, nobody cares. Nobody cares at all. Certainly not Silencer Shop. I was one of those people who believed that, you know, you're going to do a suppressor transfer. Silencer Shop adds an additional level of security and protection to that. No, that is not the case at all. And the answer to this whole question we posed at the start is a mind-blowing yes. An FFL can indeed steal your firearm or your suppressors. So be safe out there. I want to warn all of you to use an FFL that you trust, use one that you check up on, and I guess also remember to check up on them periodically as time goes on also. You have the situation that I had. But I hope this video explaining what happened to me is helpful to you guys so you can avoid this scam in the future, or at least be on the lookout for it. There's not much you can do to prevent it if they decide to steal all your stuff though, so just be aware of that. But I want to say thanks to all of our Patreon supporters and our YouTube members. You guys make it possible that we can come out here, tell stories about the horrible things that happened, and maybe help protect some of you guys out there. I certainly hope this never happens to any of you guys. And I also want to say thanks to all of you that like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below what your thoughts are about this whole situation, and I don't know, maybe some ways we could have prevented it. I want to hear about it, make everybody a little bit more safe. All right, everyone, Walsh out. So there is one more chapter to this. I actually did hit up Silencer Shop and I said, hey, ATF had no idea why you even sent me here. And they're like, well, we can't give you legal guidance, but you should definitely get a lawyer and pursue legal action. Cool, guys. That was awesome. You guys just all be safe out there. I am working on some cool new videos though. I have no idea what comes on after this. It could be some cool stuff from Agilite if I time this appropriately, or you got some cool chest rig stuff, or, oh, yeah, there's a lot of cool chest rigs. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Keep an eye out. Yeah, a lot. Oh, there's so much stuff I can't even tell you guys. So much stuff I'm excited about. And if you haven't seen amps with this black Reese wraps, this is awesome. All right, guys, just rambling. I hate this whole situation so much. I can't believe it. If something like this ever happened to any of you, comment. I gotta go. Comment down below. I want to hear all about your stories. We're gonna blow all this up. All right, later, guys.